Will the Carolina Hurricanes trade Brett Pesce, or will they finally give him his contract extension? Find out in today's episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the lovely folks over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this late Friday night as you're getting home from wherever you were tonight or Saturday morning or whenever you're listening to this. Thank you. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing great.
Oh, not going to elaborate on that? I hear you.
No. I'm ready to get into this. We've got some juicy tidbits to fire up tonight.
Yes, we do. Because Brett Pesce has been the talk of the Hurricanes space as of late, of whether or not they're going to extend him. Will he be traded? Yada, yada, yada. Folks, saying they shouldn't, folks saying they should, all of that stuff. And, a little bit of backstory on this. He is on the last year of his contract. He's making a little over $4 million a season. I believe it was $4.025 million. He's 28 years old. And the big thing that we talked about when we were previous episode talking about guys they should extend, guys they should let go, all that stuff, was the fact that right after that New Jersey Devils Columbus Blue Jackets sign and trade, I forget who it was for.
Damon Severson.
Yes, thank you. He changed agents. I think like a day or two after that. And, you can Severson, he's pretty comparable to Brett Pesce in terms of what he does. So that was definitely one where folks, immediately saw that deal and like, okay, we can kind of get an idea of what Pesce may be looking for.
Yeah, I think that was like we said, that was a pretty good comparable to Pesce. Him hiring a new agent. We're looking at this report from Pierre LeBrun about the current state of the negotiations between the Hurricanes and Brett Pesce. That when a player hires a new agent, they've usually been promised certain things. So yeah, I think, look, the bottom line here with Brett Pesce is he has been on, the Hurricanes made a bet. Ron Francis made a bet on Brett Pesce's potential when he signed him to this extension. Because I believe he was coming off might have been his rookie year when he didn't play a ton. Might have been his second year still with a year left on his ELC, thinking, hey, if this guy develops the way we think he is, then this deal will be a bargain. Lo and behold, that's exactly what's happened. Brett Pesce's developed into a phenomenal shutdown, second pairing, top four defenseman, and has been, playing at a bargain rate for pretty much his whole career. So he's well within his rights to ask for a sizable raise as he goes into these next contract negotiations.
Yeah, 110%. He has definitely earned every penny, that he is going to get because he has been really stinking good. Like you said, they absolutely won that bet when they signed him to that extension. And like we said, now the talk is, won't they extend him? Will they trade him? Will they not trade him? Because again, he has, really earned, his raise, and he's going to be looking for a good raise. That's for sure. He's going to be looking for, I would probably say, upwards of $6 million plus, annual value. So it's going to be very very interesting to see how things end up shaking out. I do think we will agree that the Hurricanes, definitely need to get a deal done with him. Because he is an important piece on this team. We've talked extensively about what he does for the team. But on the flip side of that, he's not a player that is untouchable. And should the right deal come along, and then maybe he is a guy that is getting moved. Again, they do still have a year to do this. It's not something that needs to get done here in the next couple of weeks. It's not one that you know is super super pressing, but it is one that I think does need to get done. But on the flip side of that, if like, all right, a deal isn't going to get done, we know it's not going to happen, say come trade deadline, and we know, all right, he's going to walk in free agency, then maybe he is a guy that gets moved on from. But that's just something we'll kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think if you look again at this report from Pierre LeBrun, it starts out saying, let's be clear that, the Hurricanes would rather extend
Yeah.
Pesce than trade him. Pesce wants to be here. He doesn't want to leave, but things didn't start on the best of footings with him hiring a new agent, potentially some high demands there. I could see, the Sabres and Oilers are two teams that have shown interest in Pesce. And here's the way he ends it. And this is a direct quote. The situation is clear. Either the Hurricanes extend Pesce or trade him this summer. They're not comfortable letting him start the 2023 season on an expiring deal. They're protecting the asset here. So I don't even think this is an end of the season trade deadline thing. This is either they're going to get this extension done or they're going to realize, okay, we're not on the same page here. And they're going to trade him. They're going to get something for him rather than risk him potentially walking for nothing in a year. Because the other side of that is, that when you're a team like the Hurricanes that's contending for the cup, moving a piece like that at the trade deadline isn't something you really want to do. But if they were to get in a position where they had to move Brett Pesce this summer because they can't extend him, then you can kind of set the table for next year's teams in terms of, all right, what are we getting for him? How is it making us better? Who's replacing him on the blue line? These are the kind of deals that I think the Hurricanes prefer to make in the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And we will continue to talk about a Brett Pesce trade, what he could potentially fetch, teams that he could go to right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, we've been talking about Birddogs a lot as of late, and Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs are stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches to get you a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice the movement. Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. So go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you that. I personally really love mine. They are super, super comfortable, and I wear them all the time. Now, getting back into Brett Pesce, you mentioned that the Oilers and Sabres are teams that are floating around, and he's gaining interest in a potential trade. And one thing, with that there is starting to be this interest. Like you said, him switching agents isn't really a good sign. It is the fact that he's gaining interest on the trade market a bad sign that hey, maybe these guys in these front offices across the league know something that we don't. that they know, okay, Pesce is here, the Canes are here, could they maybe be, aware of, something that we aren't?
I think that's entirely possible. I also think it's entirely possible that that's not necessarily the case. It's
Hmm.
just, they're hearing this like, oh, hey, okay, the Hurricanes are looking at extending this guy and he just hired a new agent. Maybe there's something there, maybe they'd be willing to move him. There's a year left on his deal because Brett Pesce is a really, really good player.
Yeah.
It's hard to get top four to find and get really reliable top four defensemen in the NHL. So, of course, I think teams, if they think there's any chance that the Hurricanes might be willing to move on from him or, that things are up in the air in terms of his contract, his future, that they're at least going to reach out and try. I mean, why would you not? If I'm an NHL team that needs a defenseman and I see, oh, Brett Pesce is entering the last year of his deal, the Hurricanes are trying to extend him, but he just hired an agent, so maybe it's not going well. I'm at
Hmm.
least going to call. Now, what you said is possible too, but I think those are both on the table.
Yeah, I think so as well. This is obviously all speculation. We aren't, in the offices at PNC Arena and across the league. We are, just two guys speculating, in their homes. And it would be interesting to see what they could potentially get in a return for him. We've talked before that they're going to look at adding some scoring. That's going to be a big thing that they'll be looking at doing this off season, and as well as filling other little holes that are bound to show up on the roster. So obviously the Oilers and Sabres again are the two names that are floating around right now, but there could be other parties there that could be coming up within the next however long. But what do you think? Should the Hurricanes trade Brett Pesce this offseason? What do you think he would fetch in a trade?
Well, I mean, if I'm looking at the Edmonton Oilers, I'm probably starting with Connor McDavid. I'm just to be no.
Yeah.
The thing of it is, it's interesting. I think there's a couple different ways the Hurricanes could go here if they're looking for that big, star pure goal scoring winger to add to help put them over the hump. He could be a piece in a package like that. If you think back to last offseason, a guy the Hurricanes tried to get was Matthew Tkachuk. The package that the Flames ended up taking included Jonathan Huberdeau and then Mackenzie Weegar, two guys from Florida who were considered core pieces but had a year left on their deals. So maybe that's a possibility. I don't see them moving him, just to move him to get like futures, like a first round, unless they're thinking like, okay, we move Pesce to this team, we get these assets, and then we turn around and use these assets to help us get this guy.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in on one of those bigger names. Looking at Buffalo and Edmonton, I'm not sure I see an amazing, like obviously with Edmonton, you're not going to get Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. I was obviously joking.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to get Zach Hyman or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins either, because those are two pretty productive guys for them on bargain deals. You'd have to give up a lot. I'd be willing to give up a lot, and maybe Brett Pesce is the start of that. Buffalo, I mean, like you're not getting Tage Thompson, you're not getting Dylan Cousins. It's hard to see an amazing fit there.
Mm-hmm.
Bring Jeff Skinner back. I mean, that $9 million cap hit might be an issue. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's not an obvious like specific player right now that I would be trying to package. I mean, maybe if you look at like, we've talked about Alex DeBrincat. Maybe that could be an option if Ottawa wants to add defense and they think that they can extend Pesce, are willing to pay him more than the Hurricanes. If they're not willing to pay Alex DeBrincat, I don't know that they'd be willing to pay Brett Pesce, but that's the kind of thing I'd be looking at, like using him as part of that big package to get your big elite goal scorer. Or again, on the flip side, trade him for assets, turn around and flip those assets to get that guy you want. Or also, I mean, they trade Pesce for assets. Maybe they use those to get a cheaper top four second pairing right shot defenseman. Easier said than done. There aren't too many bargains out there like Brett Pesce, but knowing how the Hurricanes operate, that's another way I could see them going, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ottawa and trading for Alex DeBrincat. We've talked a lot about that one. Would there be any other potential places aside from Ottawa that you could potentially see the Hurricanes making a deal with to move on from Brett Pesce whether it be in a package, one for one, whatever it may be.
Uh, I like Brett Pesce too much to talk about sending him to Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like if you're going to swing for Clayton Keller, and they think they're, although I don't know why Brett Pesce would extend with Arizona given everything that's going on. Calgary's done it once. Maybe they do it again with a guy like Elias Lindholm, especially. It's funny, all the former Hurricanes we're going to get wrapped up to in this one because it's looking like they're going to trade Noah Hannafin
Hmm.
rather than extending him. Maybe Brett Pesce's a guy they'd rather have. Maybe, Pesce plus, you, especially with Lindholm with a year left on his deal, you kind of could configure something there. I don't know. There's a lot of, it certainly would be interesting, but certainly something like what Florida did last year in order to get Kachuk would be the kind of thing I'd be exploring.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. There, I do think Pesci could be a nice starting point, for a package deal. Things that we've talked about. If they got to move on from him, him, Tavo Teravainen, maybe a prospect or pick or whatever, throwing those in, to Ottawa, for Alex DeBrincat or, somewhere else. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. This is obviously going to be a story that we continue to follow. But on the flip side of, talking about trading him, the Hurricanes want to extend him. Brett Pesce wants to stay here. So now it's time to look at a potential for a Brett Pesce extension right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, it is baseball season, and if you are wanting to go to a Gametime has you covered. Buying tickets for your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of these sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You're not going to get surprised by it pulling your way or anything like that. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're all set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email because that is never fun. Snag tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, looking at the possibility of a Brett Pesce extension. Now, if again, if you're going to talk about a trade, you got to talk about extension here. Also, and we kind of talked earlier about a potential salary range. I'm definitely thinking 6 million plus is probably what he's going to be looking for. Again, he's making a little over 4 million right now, so that's going to be interesting. I think he would be worth. Again, we're just going to say 6 million, for sake of just doing this. And I think if that was the AAV, I think the Hurricanes could maybe swing that. But I think the real interesting thing here is going to be the term. because he is 28 years old. And he's been playing for a while now as well. So and how with athletes or whatever, kind of once they hit the 30-year mark, not everyone, but a lot of folks, tend to start to peter off after they cross the 30-year-old line. And again, he's gonna want a nice extension and nice raise. And I think where the issue is going to be is probably going to come to the term, because the Hurricanes, especially with guys in their late 20s, they're not too keen on signing them to long-term extensions. We've seen that before recently. Dougie Hamilton, a guy that a lot of folks thought could be locked in as a core piece. They decided not to. Decided to let him walk in free agency. Signed that really massive deal with New Jersey. So what do you think extension could look like?
Yeah, I think the 6.5, between 6 and 7 on the money is right. I'm right there with you on the term. We've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this a lot. He would be 29 by the time an extension started. You're absolutely right that this is something that the Hurricanes have been pretty reticent to do, to give long-term deals to guys approaching that age mark. And they've also been, kind of, with most guys, it's kind of like, here's what we think you're worth. If you can get more somewhere else, great. We're not going to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Brett Pesce's an exception to that rule.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think for me, I mean, to be honest with you, I'd be willing to go more money to get less term, because the fact that he'd be 29 and the fact that he has that history of shoulder issues scares me. If they went 7
Mm-hmm.
or 8 years, he could be a guy who keeps playing well into his mid to late 30s, or that could be an albatross around the Hurricanes' neck when it gets to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be willing to push closer to 7 million to cap the term at like 4 to 5 years. If
Mm-hmm.
Brett Pesce is adamant on 7-8 years, and especially if there gets to be a bidding war on the trade market and you get a really good offer, I'm thinking long and hard about it. This is not, I love Brett Pesce, the person, the player. I love the fact that he's such a homegrown success story from being a third round pick to what he's turned into. If the Hurricanes traded Brett Pesce, it would stink. He's made a lot of great memories here. He's played a lot of great hockey here. He's a fan favorite, but it's a business. It's a hard salary cap. The Hurricanes have a lot of big decisions to make in regards to contracts going forward. And to me, again, we talked about all this. The Hurricanes want Brett Pesce. Brett Pesce wants to be here. So maybe they can compromise on the term and work something out. But again, if he's just adamant on that 7-8 year term, I might be looking to move on, because to me, he's not a keep at all costs guy. He's a really, really good player, but he's not. I mean, there's 3 guys, honestly, on the Hurricanes that are keep at all / any costs to me. One in which they've already made their move to do so, in Andrei Svechnikov. The others are Sebastian Aho and Jacob Slavin. Brett Pesce's a great player. He's just not quite in that tier for me. So I have a price point in term, I think, in these negotiations that I'm not willing to go past. And if it becomes clear that, he's not willing to compromise on that, then I might look to move on.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking, in the 3 to maybe 5-year deal, in terms of term. Excuse me, say that 5 times fast. And I think in the salary range, in the 6 to 7 million, I think that's I kind of think that's where you'll be looking at. But on the flip side, like you just said, he is such a homegrown success story, and he wants to be here, and the Hurricanes want to keep him. Do you see the potential of Pesce taking a bit of a hometown discount? Say, all right, he wants to say they want to keep him. Say they do, a 1-year extension, just to get things to give him more time or anything like that. I mean I don't see that happening. I see he's gonna go for it regardless.
Yeah,
I
I
don't see a
can't.
bridge deal. He's not at that point in his career anymore. But do you see the possibility of him taking maybe a bit of a hometown discount? We've seen that with guys before across sports. It's time for an extension. Yeah, they get a very nice hefty pay raise, but they take less for their team they're already with rather than being able to get more somewhere else. Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles, he signed a big fat extension, but he very well could have gotten more from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes could be making more than he's making right
Mm-hmm.
now. Like, let's be real. I mean, yeah, I mean, Brett Pesce, I could see it, but for me, the discount is more on the term side. Like, it's
Yeah,
like, okay, we're willing to go 4 to 5 years, 6-ish million, because the thing is, he's been a bargain player
yeah.
for his whole career, and he has every right to want a bigger a raise. And I think with hiring a new agent, they're going to be pushing for that. I can't see the 1, 2, 3 year thing just because, like, at that point, he's in his early 30s and he's got less of a chance to
Yeah.
probably get a big long term deal. This is his chance to cash in, and he has every right to take it. Um, he should take it. He's certainly under no obligation to take a discount with the Hurricanes. I certainly think that might be what it takes, at least a little bit, for him to stay, given the way that they've operated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they do
But
tend to
yeah,
like to play hardball.
yeah, they do. And I can't see him taking some big discount. Like, I still think his money will be in the 6-ish million. The place I could see them compromising is on term, maybe 4 to 5 years as opposed to 7 or 8. But he might really want that, and if he does, that's okay. He's these guys have a limited window
Mm-hmm.
in their lives to make sure that they and their families are set up as best they can be. And this is kind of this is going to be his best chance at getting that big deal. And maybe a team like Buffalo that has not been to the playoffs since I was in 8th grade. If they
Mm-hmm.
think, a defenseman like Pesce is what gets them there, they might be like, hey, we are willing to drop what we need to drop on the table to make this happen. And if you're the Hurricanes, you just have to live with that. But yeah, no, I think, again, given the everything in the LeBron report about the parts about Hurricanes wanting to keep him wanting to stay here, everything he's gotten to do and be a part of here. I could see there being a little bit of a compromise, but certainly not a big discount.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be a very interesting thing to follow throughout the off season. Again, there is still plenty of time between now and the start of the season. Again, as that report said, they're wanting to get something done, whether it be an extension, whether it be a trade before the start of the season, it not be a trade deadline type move. The only way, I see him, having not signed an extension, but starts the season with the Hurricanes, if they're just like right there, like, all right, we're, just, these little fine details, like, all right, we got, this and we got this. It's just, tweaking these couple little things. That's kind of what I see happening there. And again, there's still plenty of time for this stuff to get done. It's as of recording, it is now June 17th. But it there's a whole lot of time between now and the start of the season. So this will be something we continue to follow as the off season goes along with all the other guys that are going to be getting extensions coming up in the next couple months. We'll be following all of that here on Locked On Hurricanes. So make sure you're following the show on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes, myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96, and Andrew on Twitter at ASchnit53. Maybe he'll get Jeff Skinner to come back one day. I don't know. Again, that's
Uh,
that's a joke. We don't want Jeff Skinner back.
uh, Only if there's something that happens to make every part of the current terms of his contract disappear, for sure.
They retain like 75% of his salary.
Or he gets bought out. Not something I see happen. He's still
Yeah.
too good for that. But
No, yeah, I don't see that happening. But Again, make sure you're following us on all the socials. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts on the Pesce trade extension, what you think, a trade could look like, what you think an extension could look like. Let us know in the comments down on YouTube and tweet at us on Twitter. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. And as always, let's go Canes.